Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there. This is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. The same can happen to you. So when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're viewing any of the podcasts on YouTube, please subscribe. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books. I'm available for speaking engagements, in-person and virtual seminars, so please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me Katharine Giovanni, whose journey from battling stage 3 breast cancer to navigating a challenging childhood has given her profound insights about resilience and forgiveness. Whether through her books, speaking engagements, or consulting sessions, she is dedicated to helping individuals and organizations tap into their full potential. She is a 3-time award-winning best-selling author, speaker, and trailblazer. She has authored over 12 books, including her latest release, The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness, Unlocking Your Power. I'm thrilled to have Katharine come and share with listeners of this podcast today. So, Katharine, welcome to the podcast again. Would you please share with listeners a little bit about yourself and where you've been interviewed from?
I'm being interviewed from North Carolina, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it. I am a concierge trainer by trade. Been doing that for 25 years, and I'm semi-retired from that so I can focus on all of my books.
Okay. All right. Well, Katharine, I have had the opportunity to read your profile and get a little more insight about you. It's very, very intriguing and compelling profile, what you have gone through, and obviously writing about it and all of this. So let's get into a little bit of, about it, because I'm interested. First of all, I want to just say it's always good to have somebody come on my show from North Carolina. You didn't say where you were in North Carolina. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. Where about yourself?
I'm just outside of Wilmington.
All right. I've been in Wilmington quite a few times. I know that area very well. Did a lot of CLE workshops down that way with a lot of the lawyers in the Wilmington area. So I'm very familiar with it. But anyway, let's talk about you. You are, as those saying say, you are something else.
I've been called many things.
So let's talk about your journey. Like I said, it's very compelling. I really enjoyed just reading through your profile and all that you've done. So, could you tell us just a little bit about your forgiveness journey? And you know why I'm excited about that? Because see, I just retired from the pastorate over 32 years, same church. Now I'm serving as an interim at my home church. So this forgiveness is hitting me, because sometimes I get a little upset, don't quite know, and I'm supposed to be a preacher, But
You're human.
Talk about it a little bit. Tell us a little bit about this forgiveness journey, and then obviously you can just go on and tell us about because obviously you're writing your book about it is basically the same thing. So kind of talk about that a little bit with us.
Well, I come from a rough background. I had a dysfunctional childhood with 2 alcoholic parents. I was horribly bullied in school. And in the 8th grade, I almost committed suicide. So it turned me into one of those classic angry teenagers. You've met them, you know them, they're out there. That was me, draped in black, didn't want to talk to anybody. I kind of bumped through life till I was in my 20s. And then my mother got sober and we became best friends. And we were tight as anything for 3 years. Then she died of breast cancer. So it kind of threw me into a funk. And I realized that if I didn't get out of that funk, because I was going to work and my mom died in my apartment. So I was going to work, my apartment, work, grocery store, apartment, had one friend. It was really not a life. And I knew that if I didn't change, I would die, just like my mother. So I quit drinking. It's been sober now for 32 years. And I got my life together. And I kind of, everybody teaches you that you need to forgive. Everybody. We've all heard it, but nobody teaches you how. And if you have somebody in your life that you can't forgive because they're unforgivable, and that's the person everybody listening to this podcast is thinking about right now, by the way, they're thinking about that person. No, Catherine, I don't want to forgive them. Well, you don't have to in my world. But what the book I'm teaching is I'm teaching you how to forgive. And I'm teaching it in a different way than you're used to. So those people that don't have a nasty habit of not staying forgiven because maybe you live with them, or maybe you see them again on Facebook and you see their name and you just kind of get that zing and you're back into it again. So the trick is to forgive so they stay forgiven, because you want to get them out of your head. So
Okay.
I have forgiven people, places, and things. Thank you very much. I even forgave 1974. Why did I forgive 1974? Because that was the year in the 8th grade I almost tried to commit suicide. It was a horrible year. But what everybody doesn't realize is you don't have to forgive the unforgivable. There's so many other things that you can forgive before we even get to those people. So I've told people in the book that I want you to write down people, places, and things, and start with the people. Write them all down. Anybody that comes to your mind. Then I want you to rate them between 1 and 10. The 10s are unforgivable. The 10s you save for last. You start with the 1s.
Okay, well,
That's part of the process.
Okay, let me ask you this question, because this is very interesting. Because forgiveness is obviously very central to my faith. I'm a Baptist minister, and of course, I was retired after 32 years from the same church. So obviously, I'm interested in how you are dealing with this, and it's very compelling, very interesting to me. So if there is somebody that you think is unforgivable, and I'm struggling with that. So I have to admit, I'm struggling with that. That's unforgivable. Then I want to ask the question, is it even possible then to forgive them, and how you do it? Am I making sense?
It is possible.
Okay.
It is possible. It's very hard. It's even harder when you're the number 10 and you're the unforgivable person, and then forgiving yourself is possibly the worst thing to do. There's a couple ways I get to forgiveness. There's a passage in the Bible. I'm probably not quoting it directly because I'm old. But Jesus was nailed on the cross, and he looked at and he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." Right. So in my mind, what that meant was, if I'm in college and I'm looking at somebody who's 5 years old, I can't get mad at that 5-year-old because they haven't learned algebra. I can't get mad at that because they haven't learned it yet. So my parents did the best that they could with the tools they had at the time. Was it good enough? Clearly not. But they did the best that they could. And it takes a little bit of mental gymnastics to get you there. But there's another passage in the Bible that kind of keeps me going. Yea, through I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Okay. He doesn't say stop and have lunch. He doesn't say stop and visit a few people in that valley. He doesn't say to build a house there. He wants you to walk through. Forgiveness is going to allow the person you're thinking about you're going to stop thinking about this person. It's a dumpster fire. So if let's use a really horrible example. Let's say you were raped. Okay. That's a dumpster fire. It's a number 10. You don't want to forgive the rapist. Is it appropriate for you to forgive the rapist? Probably not. They're very evil. They're ugly. That's awful. But it's a dumpster fire. There's other things in that dumpster that you can forgive. You can pick out the place where you can rape. You can pick out the building, the bed, the chair. You can forgive all those. You can forgive yourself. You can forgive the taxi driver. There's so many other things you can pick out of that dumpster before you even get to the number 10. And
Okay,
you
so
also haven't forgiven the energy around the event. Einstein proved, and there is a science chapter in my book that kind of talks about all of this, but Einstein did prove energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form. So when you get angry, what happens? You think it goes out of your mouth and it dissipates into the universe. It does not. It stays in your energy field. So the more angry you get, and for those of you listening, I'm putting a glass, an opaque glass in front of my face. If this glass or this coffee mug is anger, I can't conduct my life because I can't see anything. All I can focus on is the anger. So what forgiveness does, it doesn't mean the person was right. Just because I've forgiven you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you, because I probably don't. It means I want you out of my head. So when I see your name on Facebook, social media, I meet you at church, it's not going to matter. I'm going to be neutral. I'm not going to like you. I'm not going to hate you. I really just don't care. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the neutrality.
so are you saying to listeners in this analogy that the trash can is number 10, but all of the stuff in that trash can may be lower than the number 10, so that I can forgive some of the other stuff that's in there, but the banana pudding and all the other little trash that's in there. Or that's where you're basically coming from. Am I correct?
Correct.
Before I can get to the trash can.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Okay.
When I forgave my bullies from grammar school, I had a hard time forgiving the bullies. I'm 63 now, and is it crazy that I'm sitting here, being angry at something that happened when I was in grammar school? Sort of, but yet I was still kind of irritated by it. It was still there. And whenever I heard an anti-bullying ad, I would kind of think about it. So I forgave, it was a dumpster fire. So I forgave the school building. I forgave the classroom. It kind of lightened the energy up a little bit. I forgave the desk. I forgave the locker they almost stuffed me in. I forgave the stuff around the bullies. And by the time I got to the bullies themselves, I had done enough mental gymnastics that I could actually forgive them.
Okay. Now, there's this old saying, forgive and forget. I'm getting from you that you're saying you may forgive, but you don't necessarily forget. Am I correct?
I remember my childhood. I can dredge up the bad things that happened if you really want me to, but I don't, because they're meaningless to me now. And now my memories of my childhood, I can remember the good stuff. I can remember the love that was there that I couldn't see before because I was looking at it through these glasses of anger that I spent years making. My story was my personality. I was proud of it. I was a survivor. I wore that like a coat of armor. I talked about it. I was proud. Look at me. I survived all this horrible stuff. And then finally, and even if you spin the story funny, you're still telling the story. But by telling the story then I guess I have to forgive it. And losing your story is really scary, because if I lose the story, who am I?
Okay. Uh,
Who am I? That's very scary.
all right, Catherine, did you get to this point in your life after having gone through your journey of your breast cancer? Did that bring you to a point of, okay, I'm looking at now forgiveness? I mean, sometimes there are things in our lives that bring us to a point wherein we begin to reflect and start seeing things in a different way. Is it your bout with the breast cancer, or was it something else that made you get to where you are?
I did say I've been doing forgiveness. By the time I got to breast cancer in 2012, I've been forgiving people for 20 years, but I've
Okay.
been doing it the original way I was quote unquote taught. And it was helping, but people didn't stay forgiven. And I was still angry at the bullies. But I mean, over the years, I learned that forgiveness made me feel better. And then I got breast cancer. And you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you get through it. So I got through breast cancer with positivity because being negative doesn't do a damn bit of good. It's not going to take the thing away.
Mm-hmm.
And once when you have dinner with the Grim Reaper and you don't go home with the guy, it changes you. And I realized that the forgiveness method I was using wasn't getting people to stay forgiven. It worked for a few weeks, but then somebody would call me in my family, or then I'd see something and it would, boom, it would come just right back and I'd be angry all over again. So
Okay.
that's when I came up with, after breast cancer, that's when I came up with this method of forgiveness, because I wanted people to stay in the past.
I
Doesn't
got
mean they
you.
were right. It
I
just
got you.
means that I want to be free.
Okay. Makes sense. And I hear you very well. Catherine, there are folks who listen to this podcast who, I guess, well, I don't have to guess. I know I've gone through some similar situations that you've gone through. Have interviewed other folks who've been bullied.
Mhm.
I know there are people who listen to this who perhaps have dealt with breast cancer, other types of illness, and they're always looking for something that will kind of and give them some uplift them. Is a word I probably want to say. So, what would you say to these individuals? And they're the ones who basically tune into my podcast that would give them some encouragement, that would be inspiring, and hopefully transforming to them. Do you have a word for them?
I do.
Okay.
The first thing I would tell everybody listening is it's not your fault.
Oh, what's that? Okay.
It's not your fault. Getting cancer was not your fault. Getting bullied was not your fault. The reason you started to drink, not your fault.
Mm,
It's not your fault.
okay.
And I recently read an article. This is true. It inspired me so much. 105-year-old woman just got her master's degree.
Mm,
105. Okay, that tells me that it's never too late. It's
mm,
never too late to become what you might have been.
mm,
Okay. Everybody, no, but not all of us are going to play golf like Tiger Woods, but we could sure all learn how to play the game, and become a hack.
mm.
So it's never too late. And if you're suffering from cancer, I survived stage 3 triple positive breast cancer. I was sick for 4 years. Um, don't die until you're dead. Stay
Mm.
positive. Let me tell you a story about the cancer. They sent me to chemo class. True story. It was awful. And I'm in this airless little room with my husband of 30 plus years. And they started to tell us everything that would go wrong, all the side effects, all the stuff. My brain snapped because I'm a positive person. And I just sat there and my brain just snapped it too. And I walked up to Nurse Ratchet at the front, and she was Southern. And I said, I'm not going to get all those side effects. She looked at me and she said, oh, honey, you're going to get most of them. And I leveled her a look and I said, no, I'm not. She said, okay. Fast forward 1 year. And I had every chemo, radiation, you name it, they threw it at me. Operations, blah, blah, blah. wrote a book about it. You can buy it if you're interested. Um, but she came up to me in the hall one day and she said, "What did you do?" I looked at her and I smiled and I said, "What do you mean? What did I do?" She said, "What are you eating? You seem to be healthier than everybody else who's got stage 3 cancer like you." And I smiled and I said, "Well, I am eating clean, but do you remember what I said a year ago when I said I
Hmm.
was not going to get as sick?" Your perspective, your thoughts shape your reality. And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean I didn't get sick and I wasn't in pain. It was horrible, but you don't want to let the terrorists win. And as far as I was concerned, cancer was a terrorist. I've been
Right.
through a lot of stuff in my life.
Mm.
And you kind of get tired of being life's punching bag after a while. But I'm also crazy enough that I write about it.
Mm.
And I've survived all of it. So everybody listening to this podcast, you've survived everything they've thrown at you because you're listening to the two of us.
Mm.
So bravo for you. You got
Well,
this.
well said. Well said. Well said. Listeners, I know you hear it. Well said and well put. Listen, hang on. Don't go any place. We're going to come right back with some more uh, conversation with Katharine, but I want to give Katharine the opportunity to share with us where we can get her books and where we can find or get more information on her. So, Katharine, would you share that with listeners of this podcast?
You can go to my website at katharinegiovanni.com. Katharine is spelled a little bit strangely, thanks to my mother. Katharine Giovanni.com. All my books are on Amazon. My latest book on forgiveness is also available in audio form for anybody who really doesn't like to read. That's also on Amazon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so very much. A couple more questions and we'll be finished, Katharine, but I am curious because you, I guess, asked the question, and maybe I'm not sure where you were going with it, but do you have to forgive the person that has wronged you face to face?
No.
Ah,
See,
okay.
I am a big fan of recovery programs.
All
And
right.
I know in AA they do kind of want you to reach out and make amends.
Okay.
In my world, you don't have to. Forgiveness is selfish. You do it for
Mm.
you. The other person doesn't even have to know you're doing it. I did it in the privacy of my own home in my bedroom. And I would just imagine the person standing in front of me and I would say the little mantra that I have in the book. And that's that. You don't have to tell anybody, but I guarantee you they're going to notice. They're going to come up to you and say, "You look really good today. Did you lose weight or did you get a haircut? I mean, what are you doing? You look so good today." It's because the anger is starting to lift out of your body and people are going to notice. You're going to feel better. You might lose some weight. No kidding. There's a reason to buy the book. You might get some more money. Why? Okay, this is not it's because going back, you're so focused on your anger. All you can see is your anger. When you finally start to forgive and you put the anger down, you're going to start to notice opportunities. You're going to start meeting people. You might even meet your significant other. You didn't see him before because you were too angry and that's all you were focused on. You were focused on your past. So when you finally lose the anger, it's like putting down luggage and taking a coat off. You're going to feel freer and you're going to start noticing opportunities.
Wow. Well said. This is very interesting. You know, the more I'm talking to you, the more I realize that you are the type of guest that I always try to look for. Those who have really got these
Thank you.
encouraging, inspiring, and transforming stories that they can share. And you're doing a great job with this, and I do appreciate that very, very much. What makes your forgiveness method different from everyone else? You know, we forgive. You know, I know I like to feel that I forgive as a minister, but you seem to have a different approach to it. Tell us a little bit about that.
I, I wanted to provide a step-by-step process because I'd never seen one out there. So the first step is to write a list of people, places, and things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think places and things are too weird, even after listening to this, read the book and just write down, let's say 10 people. Doesn't matter. Just write a list of people. And then I want you to rate the people from 1 to 10, 10 being horrific, unforgivable. I don't even want to look at that person.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want you to start at the number ones. The person in grammar school who stole your lunch. The person who cut you off on aisle 4 in the grocery store yesterday. You can forgive that person. You can forgive the little things. The person who slammed a door in your face because they didn't even see you were there. You can forgive these people. The person who stole your parking space in the lot. You can forgive these people. Start with the little ones. And as you start with the little ones, then eventually, by the time you get to the 5, 6, and 7s, you're going to start to feel better. And then you're going to get to your 8, 9s, and 10s, and the 10s are a bear. Remember, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's going to take a couple passes. So you're going to call me up or email me and say it's not working.
So,
I'm
Catherine,
still mad. Well, you
Kath,
might have to do it more than once.
Catherine, let me ask you a question then. Are you suggesting and saying, which makes sense now, I'm not suggesting this is wrong, but are you suggesting that forgiveness is a process?
Yeah, it is a process. It's
Okay,
like an
okay.
onion. Forgiveness has layers.
All
And
right.
you're going to peel back the first 2 layers of the onion, you're going to feel a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So people ask me all the time, I'll anticipate a question because they always ask it of me. When am I finished?
Mm, okay.
Humans irritate other humans. It's part of our species. You're never going to be done with forgiveness because once you forgive the first round, it's going to open up your memory and you're going to start to remember other things that you've probably forgotten.
Mm.
So it's something that I do every night before bed, and I do it absolutely every night. Well, not every night, but almost every night. And I have my list, and usually it's a mental list at this point because I've been doing it for so long, but I'll have a list and I'll sit there and think about what I'm grateful for that day. So I always think of 3 things I was grateful for, even if it was just for a hot cup of coffee. And then I'll do my forgiveness thing and I'll forgive the person, the energy around the person. I forgive myself for anything that I may or may not have done with this person. I'll forgive the energy around myself and the energy around the whole thing. And there's a mantra that has that in the book.
Would I be correct if I said then forgiveness is good for your health?
Yes, you would be very correct.
Okay.
Anger is toxic. They don't really
Okay.
tell you why anger is toxic. People just kind of throw that at you. And I'm one of those
Mm-hmm.
people that says, okay, I kind of want to know why it's toxic. How? Well, it kind of seeps into your body. There was a study done. You can look this up. It's the most fascinating. I always mess this guy's name up. His name is Matsumutsu. He's Japanese. He's a Japanese researcher who studied water. And if you just type in that, you'll find it. And he got 2 containers. I'm really dumbing this down. He took 1 container of water and he said bad things to it. He threw bad things to it. He did bad things to it. And another container of water, he just infused with love, said beautiful things to it. Then he put the water under a microscope. The water that he did and said bad things to had these ugly black formations in it. It was horrible. And the water that was infused with love, beautiful snowflake like masterpieces.
Mm,
Our body is 98% water. So when
okay.
you're angry and you go through something toxic, that water is going to turn into those ugly formations and it's going to make you sick.
Wow. Well, what can I say? This has been an awesome conversation with you today. My last question to you is, uh, could you share how using your intuitive skills have made a big difference in your life or your work, and how others can develop their intuition in a professional environment? Talk about that just a little bit for us I think it will be helpful.
Everybody's intuitive, everybody on the planet. And everybody has those gifts. Absolutely everybody. It's not just for the very few. And everybody's constantly using their intuitive gifts, whether you know it or not. You're working with people who are highly skilled and highly intuitive, but they're hiding it like I did for many years because society has this very strange way of slapping a "you're off your rocker" label on you if you even show a smidge of intuition. And I don't say psychic because it's like a used car salesman. The minute I say psychic, everybody thinks, oh, crystal ball, and she's going to take my money. That's far from the truth. Have you ever walked into a room and it feels off?
Mm,
It just feels off.
mm,
That's intuition. Have you ever you just kind of, how a meeting's going to go, even before you go in there, you just have this knee-jerk gut feeling that it's going to go bad or it's going to go really great. That's intuition. And
mhm.
that's what saved my life from breast cancer. I felt I needed to go jog. I'm allergic to exercise, have been for a very long time. I couldn't get it out of my head. You have to jog, you have to run, you have to run. And in 2011, I took up running. And in 2012, I went from a size 14 down to an 8. When I got to the 8, I found a lump of stage 3 breast cancer. And the surgeon said if I hadn't started running, I would be dead.
Mm,
There are a lot
okay.
of people listening to this podcast who have heard that and felt that, and it has saved their life in the last second.
Mm,
And I'm here to tell you that you can do that every day. Just trust that little bird on your shoulder.
wow. Katharine, it's been a joy talking with you, allowing you to share about your book and your story. And I'm grateful that you chose to come on this podcast to share with listeners of this podcast. And I want you to know how much I really, really appreciate you. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And there you have it. Uh, Katharine Giovanni sharing with us today. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.